FIBRA Awards Festival before the Awards Gala. So on behalf of our industry, I welcome you again to Romania and thank you for being the jurors of the festival. And we're going to start this talk because I think people are curious to know what happened these days during the judging sessions. And I just want to start by presenting the guests. Okay, let's start doing this. So I'm going to start first with the president of the jury, Casey Rand, Group Creative Director, Droga 5, New York. Please do. So thank you. Soomean Chang, Freelance Creative Director in New York. Casey Bird, Freelance Copywriter, President, She Says London. Aitor Borras, Associate Creative Director, Apple Free Communications in Barcelona. Howard Finkelstein, Senior Copywriter, Wieden+Kennedy, New York. Jussi Pekkala, Creative, Hasan and Partners, Helsinki. Levan Lepsveridze from Georgia. CCO and founder, Leavingstone. And we've got another member of the jury, Till Eckel, who is the European Creative Director and Managing Director of Jung von Matt. He had a pitch. He'll be back for the gala. Okay, so I'm going to start with you, Casey. So I'm going to ask all of you just to warm up, to tell us your first impressions, whatever comes to mind after these days, and then we're going to follow up with some other questions.
Okay, yeah, I thought the work was great. I mean, there was some really innovative thinking. There was a lot of integrated and digital work that was really interesting, and there was a lot of kind of use of new media platforms, which I found great. It was really kind of refreshing because a lot of the time when you're reviewing work, you're just watching craft videos over and over, and I think that there was a lot of surprising work that came out of really unique insights, and it was on par with a lot of great stuff I've seen in other places too.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought I was impressed by how much of the work felt like solutions to both not just marketing problems, but to real-world problems. I think, we all know in advertising, ads have a lot of power, and it feels good when you aren't just selling a small product, but you're actually solving a big problem. And a lot of the entries and a lot of the work I personally liked best really did feel like it was actually solving a problem. And I found myself just nodding my head, being jealous of some of those bigger ideas.
Thank you.
Yeah, exactly the same. The amount of work that we saw was really amazing to start with. Like the amount of entries was so interesting. I was quite surprised by the vast amount of work that there was. And like how I was saying, the interesting part about brands solving everyday problems and using that in a really interesting way, whether it was an app or a film or something on Facebook, just really clever thinking.
Well, hello. First of all, I'm very happy to be in Romania because I always wanted to see what happens in this country that I only knew from case videos. So for me, the cultural thing was very interesting and inspiring, and I found that lots of cases are full of insights from local culture. And also I like the moment when big brands are trying to adapt to local culture and find the way how to be present in the society. So that was very interesting, just to have this legacy from culture.
Well, the same as my colleagues. This is my voice. First of all, as Levan said, let me say thank you for the festival, to the organizer for making me live this experience with these brilliant colleagues. I love you guys. Second of all, it's the same of my colleagues said. I have to admit I'm very surprised about the social campaigns, about the committed brands to take care of some local problems, to take care of culture, to take care of legacy or heritage of this amazing country, which I didn't know until I come. And I'm very surprised. It's been very, very inspiring for us. I think it's very surprising.
The one thing for me, I when it comes to kind of like looking at all the work, I always kind of look for like what's the most disruptive kind of thinking and execution, and I was very impressed by a lot of the kind of disruptive thinking and executions for all the different categories that were entered into the award show. So that was really nice to see.
Yeah, I think my biggest thing was the level, like there were 5, 10 ideas, things, simple things that were automatically like international. So I could easily take the idea, so that impressed me. And then the technological thing, really sophisticated use of new technologies. But one thing was missing, I was wondering, because there were no hashtags, like absolutely none of them. So that amazed me as well.
Okay, what were the things you guys as a jury looked at in the first place? What kind of, let's say, big criteria you used to when judging? If you can elaborate on this.
Yeah, we actually had a big discussion about this because everybody obviously judges differently. Everybody is interested in different things. And so when we're 8 people, we had to kind of come to a conclusion about what exactly we were looking for and what the criteria was that we were judging against. And I think it was kind of different for each prize, each bar, but ultimately, like for the best work that we saw, the criteria was it a brilliant idea done brilliantly? So you can have a great idea and do it well or do it just okay, and it kind of, then the insight suffers, or you can execute something really well, but if it doesn't have a really solid, unique insight, it's not that compelling. So for us, it was that stuff that was, really brilliant insight, new idea we hadn't seen, done in a really, really, good way.
Okay. So you guys mentioned that you've seen a lot of good work, and every jury says this, just to know, and we're sure there was a lot of good work. But we are very interested, I'm sure, to know which were the things as well that you find missing, besides the hashtags, which is I think we can consider for next year. What were the things that if there was something like missing in particular, something you felt that we lack, for example?
Not as much things, but there's... I miss storytelling.
Storytelling?
Yeah. We saw a lot of digital campaigns which are really great. We're not so as much as commercials or craft as I wanted to see. I think we can forget the storytelling. I don't know what's the reason there's no commercial entries or TV entries. It's not about TV is old and bored and social media is cool and new. It's about storytelling, which is the best way to create engage an emotional link with your people. And well, when you're a jury, you expect to see great stories. Okay, we expect to see great ideas, but we love stories. I think we all of us fell in love with advertising with stories. And I miss that. I don't know what's the reason, because I miss storytelling, a story which thrilled me,
Yeah, I would have loved to have seen more entries in the best copywriting and best art direction categories. I think at heart we're all copywriters and art directors, and to really take pride in the craft of that. There were some entries that were not entered in those categories that probably could have been. and maybe it showed that we don't think of our work in that terms of the specific craft. But
Yeah, we got this from the jury last year as well. Like craft is missing more than.
there's great thinking, and there were great ideas, and yeah, the craft could have been at a higher level, but craft is a very, very hard thing.
When you say craft, for example, do you mean like in everything, or it was for the videos or for the websites or for the was it something that drew your attention in particular, like missing the craft more than like was it more mainly in digital or outside digital?
It's about videos, most of it. No? It's about videos. I don't.
Yeah, I think personally I felt it most in the film, video category. But really just seeing the few submissions into the very specific copywriting and art direction categories, I think even just trying to produce work where you feel like that aspect of it is worthy of entering into an award show will just raise the bar on craft for everything.
Okay, so for next year we should aim more for that.
Just enter more categories, I guess, was what I...
Don't forget the storytelling, please. Don't forget storytelling.
Yeah, I would love if the organizers could give me the stats about the also about how many, or if you know by heart, how many entries there were, and I was particularly interested in. Okay, let's just wait for the data then.
Yeah.
But as a percent, how much of it was a shortlist?
In total?
Yeah.
I don't know. We didn't come prepared.
30?
And
20?
how many in the end won, like a percent?
1%? No.
Okay, if you have, okay, then we should just wait for the guys to tell us. Another thing, if you guys have any questions, you just don't hesitate to ask. So was it? So is there anything else besides other ideas on this topic, on what's missing?
One thing I think I noticed that actually overall I love the ideas and I thought they were really clever when it came to solving the problems. Like we were saying, interesting insights into like Romanian culture and traditions and things, which was actually so interesting for us to learn more about Romania in general. But sometimes I saw an idea that I thought, oh, that's really good. But that was just like the start of the idea that could have been pushed further into perhaps like and different platforms or different ways. But it was a great idea, but it could have gone that step further. It was kind of maybe the first or second thought that could have been pushed. So that was sometimes a shame when I loved an idea, but it didn't feel quite it had gone enough.
Yeah, and then to take that one is like maybe a little bit was missing like truly integrated campaigns.
Too little?
Integrated, like full 360 integrated campaigns that takes the benefits of all medias in different ways. So maybe that was a little bit missing this year.
Okay, which were the, if you look at the categories, or which were the, let's say, the best categories where you've seen good work? And I'm here not only talking about the categories of the festival, but like, was it digital print or, okay? And which were the best and which were the worst, let's say, like what were you seen in terms of category?
I would say the best, so there's categories and subcategories, right? And I'd say some of the best of both those things was the digital social media category. People use social media in really interesting ways in this last round of work. It was, things that we do, well, these are, my favorite ideas are twisting things that we already do naturally, like functions we already use, but just using them in a different, new way. So there's a lot of work like that. That was great. I think, just echoing what Howard said, the copywriting and art direction categories were probably my least favorite this round. And there were some entries that could have been entered into those categories, but I think there were only like 3 pieces of work entered into copywriting. And like Aitor was saying, you can have an amazing idea, but if you don't tell a story, or if you stop at the insight and you don't take it anywhere further, the work kind of falls flat.
I'm sure that guys who entered the campaigns that they could have entered in the copywriting art direction categories are very curious to know, but of course we're not going to tell them right now. But maybe it's good to just to tell them afterwards. So we could maybe that's a good idea. So anything else regarding the categories and which were the, let's say, the
nonprofit. There was a lot of really good nonprofit work. I don't think that's a surprise. There's usually a lot of good nonprofit work, but we were actually quite blown away by some of the entries.
I'm sure you're used to some of Romania's work, if you've seen in Cannes or in other festivals, and you know that work, and you've seen a lot of work now during this. How would you say? So you probably had a level of expectations after seeing those. Was it what you see now? Was it better? Was it this in line with the expectation? Was this less than? If you could.
I mean, there was definitely like a good handful of work that we felt was on par that could be very can-worthy as well. And not a huge percentage, but there was a good percentage of it, which was impressive.
Yeah, I don't know actually how familiar any of us were with Romanian work specifically before we judged the show. I think we've all, browsed the winners of Cannes archives and been at the galas and seen that work. And so that's a really high bar because it's the winners of Cannes. But there definitely were some that could have won. I think overall, I'm not sure what the percentage would be of stuff that would get shortlisted at Cannes versus stuff that we were shortlisting. But we were judging everything. We didn't lower our bar or anything. We were judging everything as though we were at Cannes, basically.
Yeah, and it was great to see those, let's say 5-10 cases that you got the idea in 15 seconds, and you were like, okay, this is great. This could work in whatever country. So it was really, really nice to see those.
Yeah, I think with very few exceptions, all the work was really good, which I didn't expect. There was only a few that I was like, why'd they enter this? But everything was good. And then you have to, in your mind, start thinking, well, this could be, it's a good idea, it was done well, but is it award worthy? Because you don't want to water down what an award means. But I was really impressed with how the percentage of work that truly was really good. And it actually just, I think, elevated what in our minds had to kind of rise above that work to be award worthy. But the body of work, I mean, this was by far the most Romanian advertising I've ever seen in one sitting. So I was just very impressed by the whole body of work, even stuff that didn't necessarily win. I understood why it was entered, and I would have been proud to have worked on it. So yeah, I think it just speaks to the whole, the quality of all the work.
I think I totally agree, and I think it's not only about the idea, it's about the strategy. We see a lot of clever, a lot of solid, a lot of brand and building strategy. And that's very nice because it's the base of everything. Then comes the concept. We saw very brilliant concepts, very memorable concepts, and that's the idea. I totally agree with Howard. Yeah.
So how did the process go? Which were the phases that you? Which was the process? I'm sure everybody's curious.
It's a battle to the death. We at first we all shortlisted what we liked, or we gave everything a mark, and that was before we even met each other. And we looked at it on our own, and then we kind of took the averages of those and talked it out, and we put the ones that were in the highest, the highest categories forward. And if someone loved something and it hadn't moved forward, we had a discussion about why and decided to move it forward or drop some other things. then we came up with a short list, and then that was we did a short list one day, and the next day we went through all the shortlisted work and like really talked about it and said, okay, what kind of level is this worthy of? Is it a gold? Is it a silver? Is it a bronze? Is it a grand FIBRA? And then kind of went through that process and went back through again and were harder on it the second time and said to ourselves, would this win at Cannes? Is this truly like a very inspirational thing? And then came to our conclusions later in the day.
Yeah, I think one thing I really liked our hand raising levels, so I just wanted to describe it more. We said, anything that was shortlisted, we said, is this bronze worthy? And everyone voted. And then, is it silver worthy? So we started from the bottom and asked, should it be the next level? And I thought that was a smart way to do it. And then I think we also kept in the back of our mind that all this work is going to be shown to you guys. And we wanted to be proud of that work being shown. So when you see the work later, we want you to think that we got it right. So I think we were definitely cognizant of that. I was anyway, like of that exact moment when the case study is played. If there would be like gasps or shock.
And if you won a silver, you can thank Howard after, because his nickname after these last 2 days is Lone Silver. His hand was always up.
So silver is good.
Silver's good.
So we should expect more golds and bronzes than silvers.
Yeah, probably.
Okay, were there any controversy, anything controversial during the judging? Probably like things that you debated
I
for a
think
long
maybe
time.
about categories.
About?
Categories.
Categories,
When you ask about categories, it's very difficult to put a level. Okay, this is PR. Okay, this is digital. Okay, this is not like that. We had some of discussions, friendly discussions about it, and everything is mixed now. Probably a PR campaign is digital. Probably a branding content is digital. What's direct marketing? What's promo? It's everything integrated. That it's good because we have to think in a more integrated way. And this is one of the points for create more discussions between us.
Yeah, I think there were so many campaigns that we really liked that were entered in so many categories that we kind of had to start being hard on, okay, well, what is this the best version of? So if it's something that we loved, is this gold, what's the perfect gold category for this? And then we started having to say, okay, well, it was also entered into 7 other categories, and is it truly also direct marketing if it's social media? And so we started getting tougher as we went through the awards it was nominated for, I guess.
Which one of you was the toughest? Joking, you don't have to answer that. So was it, when you look at Romanian cases and everything, was this something you found to be very particular, like very specific, or we're all a global village? And was it something that you noticed, like something that we probably cannot notice when looking at everything?
Yeah,
because we're
sorry, I need to say a lot of jokes, like jokes. That was something.
Another thing we picked up on was that there was a lot of creative solutions around the music festivals. We actually thought that, Electric Festival, Electric Castle. We were saying, actually...
You were here?
No, but we know so much about it now because there was so much of the work was around the festivals and ideas and brands that...
You should come.
It looks great. Even to a point we were like, there should be a festival category because there were so many interesting ideas around the music festivals, which seem really cool. So, we're going to come back for them.
And one thing was that almost every case starts with, in Romania, we have this and this. So explaining the things, how work here. And I understand it because I'm from Georgia and the same there. We start explaining the context. But it could be very difficult for international jury to understand, and sometimes it's really difficult to make it simple. So I would advise to make it very, very simple. What's the point of being like of your context and what's the main point of your idea you're presenting. And it's not necessary to make a joke about it. Sometimes it helps, but sometimes you need just a simple explanation of this context.
Yeah, completely. Just to echo that, you know, we're going through hundreds of submissions and things like that. Sometimes it's so much better to have the idea short and sharp, you know, in a few sentences, what the insight was, what the idea is. Instead, you know, a few of them now and again were really long, and it was getting sometimes a bit confusing as to what the root of the idea was. So yeah, exactly, keep it very simple and easy to understand.
Yeah, and then with case studies with results, it's always good to put some like numbers. If it says 1 million, then kind of like how many people are there in whole Romania also, to give like, how do you call these, like percentages also, that it explains the results even better.
We had some debates in our industry regarding the difference we have sometimes between the actual campaign and the writing of the case. And I want to ask you guys if you felt sometimes gaps between what you've seen and what you've seen writing about the actual campaign, like the difference between the videos and the actual work. And was this something that you felt at any moment during the?
It's probably hard for us to know what was a good case study video and what was a successful campaign. We tried not to let that, you know, that influence our judging. I think we tried to really, the case study video informed us of the idea and the problem and the solution. And then we tried to judge it based on a creative scale. The results of the campaigns were great to know, but I think we were judging the creativity of the idea. So it's a problem everywhere, where if you're just really good at making case study videos, you can make any campaign feel bigger and more successful, but you can't make an idea better. You know, you can't make the insight better from a better produced case study video. So I think we were trying to really look for, like, what was at the heart of this execution, and did they execute it well? I mean, I think a case study video providing examples of the executions and how you brought something to life, I'm sure you can certainly do that well. And certain campaigns may have suffered because we didn't get enough of a sense of how they brought something to life. That just comes from making case study videos and then making sure that someone who's never seen this idea before will get the full extent of how much you did and what went into it and how good it was.
Yeah, I think also what's funny is that when we make case studies, like we all make case studies in our everyday to enter our own work into festivals, but then we're on juries where we then watch the case studies. And it's a little weird because everyone always does the thing where it's like X billion impressions and the percentage of, you know, everything went up. And sometimes you can watch something that you didn't think was very good and then you see the numbers and you're shocked by them. Or sometimes you watch something that's great and you see the numbers and you're also equally shocked because there's not as good as you thought. And I think we all kind of know that there's a million ways to crunch those numbers, and we do it on a daily basis. So it's refreshing to remind ourselves during the judging process that this is about the insights, and the results are nice, but it's not the FEs, right? Like, we're not judging efficacy or efficiency necessarily. We're judging the idea and the creativity behind it. And so we're all kind of like, we know how to make a case study. We know that you guys know how to make a case study. It's like it's kind of meta. We're like all in on the joke a little bit, you know?
But coming to this, because it was one of my questions, how much did, so you looked, how much you looked at the idea only, and how much you actually looked at the results, if they counted, or let's say, how much?
we looked mainly, I would say 90% at the idea, and we looked at the results, but we didn't really let it affect us unless we thought something seemed like it hadn't actually been done. Like there were some cases where, because we don't live in Romania, it's hard to know like what you guys saw out in the world as a real campaign. So in those cases, we tried to look at the results or like how many markets it was in and that kind of stuff. But we weren't too hard on like how good the results were.
Yeah, I think results help you if you have a question like, well, this is resonating with us, but did this idea resonate in the same way? And sometimes results can help show you that. So we didn't ignore them, but results can help an idea that we weren't feeling. So yeah, I think, hold on, I'm going to pause for this. Okay. Yeah, so I forgot what I was saying.
Yeah, but at the same time, I think that you couldn't win something if you didn't have the results. So in a way, we checked every time that there are results to back up the great idea and insight.
I think the results that we did take into consideration was when we saw that an idea had a lot of PR and gained a lot of traction and was showing up on the news or in media, and it felt like something spread. Like those results are way more important to me than kind of the numbers. So I think it was great. The case studies that showed that definitely caught our attention. So yeah, I think those results are important ones for sure.
And just on the point of the case study videos, sometimes we noticed that, say something was entered into a few different categories, and say, for example, it was social, it maybe wasn't reflected in the case study. So we were sort of, okay, this is entered into loads of different categories. We can definitely see it's, for example, PR, but the case study is not showing it how it has the social effect. So maybe, yeah, just be mindful.
So the writing wasn't customized on the name of the
category. Yeah, sometimes it didn't reflect the case study very well. So sometimes we were sort of searching for what was the big social part of the campaign, when there might be something really awesome in it, but it wasn't in the case study, which is a shame sometimes because it might be something that we missed out because of that.
Were there things where you didn't understand and you had to ask for help to clarify? Was this the case? Were the things that you... because people are going to submit cases in the following years as well, so probably it's good to know what could have helped you more to understand the actual campaigns.
I don't think like generally there's any advice we can give. There were some cases that were just not as clear, and that will just happen because the storytelling wasn't right in the case. But like Levan said before, I think one thing that was great was how much context was given in all the case studies. So for us who don't live here and don't know some of the cultural nuances, there was a lot of, in Romania, this happens, we needed to solve this problem, and then gave us a solution, which really helped because it means we didn't have to read through everything and go Googling stuff on the side. So that was really helpful. And like Casey's saying, I think it's just a matter of making sure the point you're trying to make in the case study is clear versus just like telling the story of the campaign. Because if you're entering a social media category, the point you're trying to make is that we made this amazing social media campaign and here's how we did that. But if you just make one case and you're submitting that also to direct marketing, then it's like, you get a little lost in what the point of the case study was. So it's either, I don't know, enter less categories or make more case studies, I guess is the answer.
Okay. If there are questions from the audience, this is a good moment to ask. Or everybody's just waiting for the words. So, guys, what would be your message for the agencies that did not win an award today? Like the cases that you didn't, because the things that agencies that win, they know that they did well. How about the agencies that, the cases that you didn't award? What made you not give the award? And this is.
I say don't mind. It doesn't mind.
What were the reasons for not awarding? It's just besides, let's say, if there was something. Other than having a good or a bad idea, things that you noticed, or in the worst?
I think some things, maybe something that caused it to fall out was we felt like we've seen something similar. It didn't feel as original. Not like it was copying something, but it just felt a little familiar enough to not make the cut. Some things, the idea in the beginning of the case study, I was nodding along, and I felt something good was coming, and I was very excited about it. And then sometimes it didn't just come together. The ends weren't tied, and that might have been a case study issue or an actual execution of the campaign issue. So I think, something that from start to finish maintained that award-winning level. And by start to finish, I mean either the beginning of a commercial, the beginning of a campaign launch, all the way through, the beginning of the case study, to the end of letting me know how the great problem and the great idea you had was then solved by the work. Sometimes the solution didn't quite live up to the kind of insight.
Okay, guys, any recommendations for agencies? And I want to hear this from all of you. Any recommendations regarding next year in writing in the work?
Yeah, well, I could start with the written submissions to try to be, I know it's hard, try to be as short as you can and try to highlight the idea in one sentence or two sentences or the insight and when the idea or the concept is great, it's gonna be so easy to find from the written submissions. So that would be my advice for the third year.
And to use hashtags. Try a hashtag campaign. And I think, part of the judging too, we're really strict on originality. So some of the stuff that might not have won were things that felt very familiar that we've seen before. So maybe kind of raise the bar in terms of the originality of something that's never been done.
With all of you, keep working. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say for those who didn't do well, I would say that consistency is a good thing. So we need to step by step try. I understand that in Romania and also in Georgia we are in a very hurry. We want everything so fast, and that's good. That's good motivation that we want to catch up with more developed markets and big brands and big companies. But yeah, we still need to think about details and crafting and things, so to polish our ideas, our work in lots of ways, in a craft way, in a copywriting, everything. So it's a matter of time, I think.
Yeah, just to keep working hard. I think we've all worked really hard on case studies and entered them into award shows thinking that something might win and it doesn't. But you just keep going for the next year, keep, like we were saying, polishing it, and then, you'll win eventually. And more entries into copy, because there was some really interesting and really nice copy in there, but it wasn't in the category. So definitely consider that next year for the category.
I would say I think award shows only exist for motivating creatives and giving you inspiration. And it's even if your stuff doesn't win, it's nice to sit in the audience and be jealous of something on screen, and that sets the bar for what you should do next year. So I would just say enjoy the night and take in all the work and be inspired by it. And if you don't win, just try harder. I mean, that's what life is about, right? And then the only other thing I would say is about this kind of craft theme that's going on stage is a lot of the work was really fresh and original from a technological perspective or a user perspective, but a lot of it felt very transactional. And I would say, leave your screen, go to a museum, read a book of poetry, look at stuff that isn't advertising, and let art lead. Even when you have an insight that's technological, it should still be artfully executed, and I would like to see more of that next year.
I thought that was a really good answer and a really good final answer for that question.
Okay, guys, thank you so much for all your effort during this, how many days? 3 days? 2 days?
4 days.
4 days.
4 days.
4 days. We assume there was a lot of work. So on behalf of everyone, thank you again. And we'll be waiting for the gala to see who won. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.